Okay, let's go ahead and get into our next story. Now, this one is about the squad. So I don't know if you were aware, but they actually held an event in DC. Now, the purpose of this event, the way that it was advertised, is to help them mobilize and organize on a national level, right? To basically help them get more of them in DC and to put, I guess, some type of pressure on the establishment. Now, hold on to what I just told you, because Colin actually attended this event. Colin is a part of Indie News Network, and Colin explained to me that at that event, the audience were basically PMCs, professional managerial class. And the squad, remember, they were supposed to be supporting the working class people. When we look back on the beginning of Justice Democrats, it was supposed to be people, everyday people who were part of the working class, to run for office, to primary challenge these establishment Democrats that are incumbents, and to take those seats and to really push back in DC. That was the whole point of Justice Democrats, so that they can get some of these progressive policies passed. But along the way, what we started to notice is that it seems like the candidates that won through Justice Democrats were not really a part of the working class. A lot of them came from corporate America. They were professional managerial class. And this is no shade to people who are PMCs, but that is not how Justice Democrats was described in the beginning. So then there is this idea that you have people who are supposed to be a part of the working class. AOC was a bartender, and they leave out the fact that she also owned a startup at one point in time. They leave out this crucial things that I think is important for people to know. And because I worked at Boston University, I did a little bit of digging myself, and I said, I find it hard to believe that this woman went to BU and she's just a bartender. And I was correct. She wasn't just a bartender, but it's not just her. Ayanna Pressley was a former city councilor here in Boston. Now, originally with Justice Democrats, these candidates were not supposed to already have political experience. They were supposed to be everyday working class people. But then you had people that had political experience. Even someone like Cori Bush, for example. Yes, it's true. Cori Bush at one point was homeless. Yes, she's been through a lot. But I found it interesting that it was not mentioned that she also had political members in her family. These are the kind of things that people need to know. And when I think back on it, sometimes I feel like Justice Democrats was just a scam from the very get-go. But Colin went to this event, and there's a couple of clips that I want to show you. The first one that I want to dive into is specifically about the student debt cancellation. Now, remember, this is something that Ayanna Pressley, Elizabeth Warren, and Chuck Schumer actually pushed in an effort to get Joe Biden to cancel student debt. Well, Colin was brave and bold enough to ask them, didn't you instruct Joe Biden to do it a certain way? Does Ayanna Pressley answer that question? Let's see.
Congressman, didn't you give a memo to Biden with Senator Warren regarding student debt to tell him to use the Higher Education Act?
Let me just say this, because I'm gonna get in trouble if I start taking questions from the floor, okay? But I want to say on student debt and where that fight stands right now, it is in the Supreme Court. By the way, expand the courts.
This is diversion. So let's go back and listen to the question that Colin asked her.
Congressman, didn't you give a memo to Biden with Senator Warren regarding student debt to tell him to use the Higher Education Act?
Let me just say.
Okay, that's the question. Again, yes or no question. By the way, I know the answer to that, and I have the receipt, and I'll show you in just a second. Watch her pivot to the Supreme Courts and how we need to expand the Supreme Court.
Because I'm gonna get in trouble if I start taking questions from the floor, okay? But I want to say on student debt and where that fight stands right now, it is in the Supreme Court. By the way, expand the courts. Expand the courts. Expand the courts.
You see what she just did there? That's diversion. That is a way for her to deviate away from the question that she is being asked. So let me try to find a way to get some type of applause or approval from the audience by saying something I know that they all will agree with. And of course, they're all going to agree with the fact that the Supreme Court should be either expanded and there should be term limits. So that is what she is doing there. That is very that's sneaky. That's sneaky. And Colin, notice he didn't yell. He just asked the question. Watch, she's going to go on.
And it's not that radical, y'all. There is precedent. It's been done 6 times before. It's far right. It's extremist. It's imbalanced. And they are causing great harm. That is where the student debt issue is right now. But that being said, we're all organizers, and no organizer goes into a fight without a contingency plan.
We're all organizers. Are they still organizers? Can they still say that? Because when there have been, activities on the outside, people who are organizing on the outside, they're not there. They don't show up. They hide. They hide from their own constituents who disagree with them. I'm going to show you that too as well. So are still organizers? Are all of them still organizers? And if that is the case, what have they been organizing? You see, she's defensive because even though this is a organizing, mobilized event to spread the message on a national level, so to speak, they still have to protect Joe Biden. So Colin's question, if Ayanna Pressley is going to answer that question, which she does not, and answer it truthfully, that is a slap in the face to Joe Biden, and they can't do that. Let's go on.
We have them, but I'm not ready to see defeat here because the legal case is sound. The legal case is sound. So, stay tuned on that because we know that was a motivating issue in the midterms for many. This is a transformational, consequential issue, and we're not giving up this fight.
If the legal case in reference to canceling student debt is sound, then why is Joe Biden and his administration they have already gathered and started talking about when repayments will start? If the legal case is sound. Let's go on.
So in the fact that we made it this far, first they said the president didn't have the authority. Then they said it would be regressive in impact and only benefit white graduate students.
Who's they? This piece right here. I'll tell you who they is. Listen to this. And look at the expression on Ayanna Pressley's face. You can tell she's incredibly defensive here. She doesn't like the fact that Colin asked that question. But she goes on to say, first they tried to tell us that the president could not cancel student debt. Who is they? Listen to this.
For many, this is a transformational, consequential issue, and we're not giving up this fight. So in the fact that we made it this far, first they said the president didn't have the authority.
They is Nancy Pelosi. See, she's trying to make people believe, oh, well, it was the Supreme Court. But who said it first? Nancy Pelosi said during a press conference live on television that the president does not have the authority to cancel student debt. She said it first. And the Supreme Court basically backed up Nancy Pelosi. Ayanna Pressley knows this. You can't tell me that she doesn't know this. But notice they are not willing to call out anyone by name that is a part of the Democratic Party, because then that hurts them. That hurts their political career. That hurts their seat. That can hurt their chances of getting more book deals, things like that. That's why they don't do it. The only time they seem to be willing to call out another politician who is problematic in reference to progressive issues is if that politician is a Republican, or if it is Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema. because they already have the green light that it's okay to criticize Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. It's okay for them to do that. It is not okay for them to say, well, Nancy Pelosi said that the president doesn't have the authority to cancel student debt. That's why they don't call out by name.
Then they said it would be regressive in impact and only benefit white graduate students who went to affluent schools. And we have challenged and proven all of that wrong. This is a huge coalition of impacted borrowers, civil rights organizations, union workers, presidents, tradesmen and women. But my point is, the progress that has been made is because of the movement. So I'll just close by saying this. It is progress. And it is progress. And listen.
The movement was started by activists on the outside. I interviewed one of the gentlemen that was a part of that movement. Organizations like the Debt Collective. You've probably seen them on Bad Faith. They've been on a couple of shows, actually. But there were multiple organizations on the outside that decided to put that pressure on Joe Biden. And then the politicians followed them up with that. But let's not sit here and pretend like they started the movement, like that Ayanna Pressley and AOC and them started the movement. They did not start the movement. The movement started with the activists on the outside, and they picked it up from there. They go on to say this is progress. They said it is progress. We are getting progress. Right now, nothing has happened. Right now, nothing has happened. Okay. Has your student debt been canceled? My student debt hasn't been canceled. Not 10,000, not 20,000. Right now, it just sits in the courts. So the reason why Colin was asking the question, didn't you tell Joe Biden to do it through the Higher Education Act, is because that is very important, because Joe Biden did not follow instructions. Joe Biden decided to do this through the HEROES Act. The HEROES Act applied to the pandemic emergency status. When you lift the emergency status, it no longer applies. The emergency status in reference to the pandemic on a national level has been lifted. That's why many people were kicked off Medicaid because of it. She still hasn't answered the question.
40 plus 60 million people have already benefited from this relief, provided the Supreme Court follows the letter of the law.
No. 40 to 60 people have already benefited. No, they haven't. No one's debt has been canceled. They haven't benefited yet. So I guess she catches herself, and then here she says, providing the Supreme Court follows the letter of the law. Then retract what you said before that, because they have not already benefited. Everyone's sitting around at home, twiddling their thumbs, trying to figure out if they're actually going to have this happen at all.
1 in 4 Black borrowers will have their debt zeroed out completely. This is 40 plus million people that stand to benefit. Do we want more? Do we fight for more? Yes. But Pell Grants are our most burdened recipients. And the fact that $20,000 worth of debt will be canceled for Pell Grant recipients and $10,000 for non-Pell Grant recipients, that is progress.
It still is not progress, because we had a student debt panel on this show. Amani Oakley was one of the panelists on this show. And even Amani Oakley contacted the debt company to ask them what would be paid off first. This is a video. She has this on Twitter. It might still be pinned to her profile. They told Amani Oakley that the interest would be paid off first. So if you have $10,000 in interest, which I know many of you may, that is what will be paid off, and you will still owe what you have on those loans. That came directly from the lenders. What's the progress, people? There are people literally sitting there thinking, oh God, I only have 20,000 left and they're going to pay this out and I'm going to be all set. No, honey. The interest will be paid first. So if you have $20,000 left that you owe in student loans, but let's say you have $8,000 interest, that money, whichever one you qualified for, let's say you qualify for the $10,000, That $8,000, that interest will be paid off first, and then whatever you have left will go towards your remaining balance. People have to understand. Of course, Joe Biden didn't explain that to you, but Imani Oakley did the research.
The legal case is sound. The president has the authority. So let's see what the Supreme Court does. But my point here is,
notice that's the second time she says the legal case is sound. Why does she continue to say that?
as much as I want government to lead, more often than not, government does not lead, but it does respond to pressure.
If they really feel this way, that the government does respond to pressure, then why is it that whenever we've organized on the outside in reference to these progressive policies, you don't see ne'er one of them show up? If that's what they believe. It does respond to pressure. Yes, it can respond to pressure, but you are not present. You are not present in the fight. You run away from the same people who canvassed for you, who voted for you, who donated to you, who phone bank for you, who are out here fighting the fight in the streets, who are doing the protests to try to put that pressure on the Biden administration. And you are not present. The only one of them that showed up to those marches for Medicare for All was Cori Bush. And from what I understand, she made it very clear that she was not happy with what we were doing. How you show up to the event and then you criticize the event? Stay home. Stay home. Where were they? Where were they when there were marches in all these cities across this country? Over 50 cities across this country. Where were they? AOC was campaigning for Nina Turner. That's what she was that day. Where was Bernie Sanders? He wasn't there. There was a march in Burlington, Vermont. So don't give me that pushback that, well, they go home on the weekend and the march was on the weekend. They were in over 50 cities. Not one of them. They not present, period.
And so we have to keep it up. So I thank you all for recognizing that movements and revolutions require resources. So we thank you for your investment and we thank you for your solidarity in this movement. The squad is big, y'all.
The resources for the protests and the organizing that were done and led by activists on the outside were already provided. All you had to do was make an appearance or even just tweet it out. Ayanna Pressley, you right here in Boston. There was a Medicare for All march here in Boston. Not only was your office contacted, but Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey, all of you guys were contacted. I know because I worked with the organizer for the event. So it was me and Kyle. So Kyle organized it. And I was the MC. We worked together. Where were you? Where was Elizabeth Warren? Where was Ed Markey? None of you present. None of you tweeted about it. None of you said a damn thing. Bernie Sanders, Medicare for All was your movement. How you let all these marches happen across this country and you don't say one word about it on Twitter? Not one word. So she did not answer his question, but I will. So I tweeted to answer Colin's question. Yes, she did. Ayanna, Warren, and Schumer instructed Biden to cancel student debt through the Higher Education Act. She did not answer the question, and here is the receipt. See, I covered this when this happened. This request was made in February of 2021. So when I went on Jimmy Dore's show, I talked about this. This shit is old. This is not new. February 2021, Warren, Schumer, Pressley colleagues. President Biden can and should use executive action to cancel up to $50,000 in federal student loan debt immediately. And they were asking for more than what was granted, obviously. But here's the piece you need to see right here. Highlight this, and we'll make it larger. Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley led their colleagues in reintroducing their bicameral resolution outlining a bold plan for President Biden to tackle the student loan debt crisis by using existing authority under the Higher Education Act to cancel up to $50,000 in student loan debt for federal student loan borrowers. So the answer to Colin's question is yes. And Joe Biden decided not to do it. She went all around in circles. She went from Massachusetts to DC to Paris to Spain, and then came back to DC and didn't answer the question. Now, that's one of the videos, but there's more. There's another video here, and this is from Jamal Bowman. And he is basically trying to call out Congress. Now, Colin, again, is going to ask a question. Listen to this. This is why people don't trust politicians.
The majority of Congress does not have a sense of urgency as it relates to doing something about this issue. Everybody's just going about their business, going about their day, in their nice suits, going to fundraisers, raising money, getting reelected, and they're not doing shit.
That includes you. That includes you, Jamal Bowman, because you do the same thing. Remember, we talked about the fundraiser that Jamal Bowman went to. Roger Meadows was at that fundraiser. Lucy was there, and they confronted him about progressive issues and why he's not pushing on issues. He goes to fundraisers too. AOC goes to those fundraisers. All of them go to the fundraisers. So when Jamal Bowman says that the majority of Congress doesn't care or they don't have a sense of urgency, let's go back.
The majority of Congress does not have a sense of urgency as it relates to doing something about this issue.
They also did not have a sense of urgency when it came to forcing the vote for Medicare for all. They didn't have a sense of urgency when it came to even attending these Medicare for all marches, any march for that matter. They didn't have a sense of urgency, but they had a sense of urgency when it came to them voting to send billions of dollars to Ukraine. They showed up for that. They had a sense of urgency about that. But when it came to doing something for the people, the squad also does not have that sense of urgency. If they had a sense of urgency, they would have forced that vote against Nancy Pelosi for Medicare for all. They had none. None.
Everybody's just going about their business, going about their day, in their nice suits, going to fundraisers, raising money, getting reelected, and they're not doing shit. Like, why are we negotiating with them on anything if they don't want to do anything about that? Why are we negotiating on any issue?
He's talking about himself. When Jamal Bowman says, why are we negotiating with them on any issue? He's the one doing the negotiating. The squad are the ones, they're the ones doing the negotiating. They're the ones going along with establishment Democrats on issues where they're supposed to push back on. They're supposed to be the progressive voice in the House, and they have chosen to go along with these neoliberal, neocon talking points in legislation. He's talking about himself. And what kills me are the people in the room clapping. Are you not aware? Are you not awake? They are no different. They are no different.
Any issue. If we have people in Congress that are okay with our children being killed and gun violence being the #1 killer of children in America, we have lost our soul as a nation.
Now here they go using Joe Biden talking points. I'm running on the soul of the nation. What is happening? What has happened? What soul? What soul? What is the soul of America? Somebody tell me in the chat. What's the soul? Let me know. Let me know, and I'll get back to you.
And so when I processed all of this consciously and subconsciously before I came out and started yelling at reporters to ask Republicans what the hell are they going to do about gun violence, which is what led to Massey addressing me and then us having that back and forth.
And he's only willing to have that back and forth and to push back on people that, again, that are Republicans. When there are people in his party that are implementing legislation that is not only just dangerous to any type of progressive movement, but hinders any type of progressive movement, there's no voice there. Jamal Bowman is silent. We don't see TikTok videos and YouTube videos of Jamal Bowman confronting Hakeem Jeffries on the issues. They're pals. They're friends. Where's that same type of tug of war with Hakeem Jeffries on Medicare for All, Jamal Bowman? You guys talking about a hip hop bill, hip hop legislation. Where's that confrontation with you and Hakeem Jeffries or Clyburn about Medicare for All? Doesn't exist. Doesn't exist.
But for me, you know, as I hear everyone speak on the issues that we're fighting for, I'm really grateful and appreciative to them and all of us and all of you. But I'm also like, damn, yo, like we gotta take over this whole shit. Like,
yes. We gotta take over the whole ship. And let me tell you what that means. So basically, he's saying they need more of them in the House. They need to take over the House, right? Wasn't that the whole strategy of Justice Democrats, eventually to take it over? But you know what that means? That requires money. Oh, and there was a lot of money to be made for this event. The cheapest ticket price to attend was $25. The highest ticket price was $500. Now, if you're supposed to be the voice of the working class people, why the hell do you even have a ticket price of $500? Because you're not trying to speak to working class people or poor people, people who are poor that don't have $25 to give to attend this event. They missed all of this information. Their voices are not heard, and that is bullshit. That is just another way for you to make more money. Give me more money. Fundraise, fundraise. We need to get more of us in the House, but we need your money, guys. After you've already donated money to them to get them elected, and you haven't seen them do shit. Let's keep it real. Raise your hand if you canvass for them. Raise your hand if you phone banked for them. And they have the nerve to turn around and ask for more damn money. So you get more people in there just like them to turn around and not do shit. This is a game. That's all this is. This is all about money. If they were serious about organizing, as they say that they are, they would come out into the streets when we are present. They would come to some of these rallies where we are, the organizers and the activists. They would be out there, not just when George Floyd died, but when any other unarmed black man or kid dies in this goddamn country. They are not present, period. And I don't require any goddamn money. And you can tell them I said it. This is a scam. All you're going to do is give them more money, and they are going to continue to disappoint you.
Right. And I mean right now, like 2024 is a wrap.
Yeah.
It's not just taking back the House. We got to grow seats in the Senate.
And if you're going to grow seats in the Senate, then that means even more money. You see how this works, guys? You see how this works?
We've got to drag this 80-year-old man across the finish line and win.
So he's talking about Joe Biden. We got to drag this old man across the finish line so he can win. Why? Now, you just told everybody you need more of you in the House. So why are you trying to help Joe Biden win? He's not you. He don't agree with your policies. He told you if Medicare for All came across his desk, he would veto it. So why are you trying to drag him across the finish line? Why haven't any of these members of the squad endorsed or supported any of the people running to the left of Joe Biden? Answer that. Answer that. If you guys say you care about these progressive policies and you care about Medicare for all so much, and you still believe in this strategy, why haven't any of them endorsed Marianne Williamson? Now, I don't believe in the strategy anymore, but they do. So if they're really serious about those progressive policies being passed, why haven't they chosen to support or tweet out or endorse Marianne Williamson? If they're serious about, oh, I'm against these wars, why haven't any of them chosen to endorse or support or tweet out about RFK Jr.? Because they're not fucking serious. That's what I want you to understand. They're not serious about any type of progressive policies getting through. They serious about money. They're serious about keeping their damn seat and writing a book. That's it. Period.
Why? Why? Why?
I'm sorry, man, but I'm upset, yo. Because here's the other thing, right? It's like,
why Biden?
I know, right?
Why?
I know. And maybe
that's Colin that you hear in the background who's saying why. Hold on. There we go.
Drag this 80-year-old man across the finish line of the win.
Why? Why? Why?
I'm sorry, man, but I'm upset, yo. Because here's the other thing, right? It's like,
why Biden?
I know, right?
Why?
I know. And maybe it should be one of us.
Maybe it should be one of us, but you're not supporting anybody that's running to the left of Joe Biden. They're full of shit. They're full of it. Now, there's another clip here where AOC talks about the devastation of the pandemic on her district in particular. Listen to this.
And what we saw at that time was out of the top 10 zip codes in the United States afflicted with COVID, 5 of them were in my congressional district. It was all hands on deck. And at that time, because it was so early, it was before the public health data had come in, it was before we knew almost anything. And there were organizers and people on the ground that were saying, this disease, this illness is not hitting all of us the same. It is hitting marginalized communities more. It is hitting Black communities more. It's hitting brown communities more. It's hitting the working class more.
And on that note, if you knew that, then why didn't you force the vote against Nancy Pelosi for Medicare for all during a time when those marginalized communities were impacted more so during the pandemic? If you knew that.
There are folks on the ground that saw this and knew this and rang the alarm about it before any public health data came out. And they said, so presciently, they said, we need to act on this now, because once people find out that this is not hitting all of us the same, they're not going to want to act on it. There's going to be less urgency. We found out that some people are more protected than others.
And we found out that there was less urgency when it came to all of you too, because you didn't push for anything during that time when your communities were impacted.
So there was this moment, I remember, all of us were a part of it, where we were on these emergency calls, and it was almost it was such a dark time, but it was also a suspended reality, because there was a moment where everybody, all Democrats of all ideologies and Republicans, were almost willing to entertain anything, from universal basic income to mortgage freezes to freezing our credit scores. They put all of it on the table because they thought they were at risk too. All of a sudden, people with the most privilege and power thought they were in the same boat as the people who were most vulnerable. And when they were in that boat, they were willing to do anything.
And if they were willing to do anything, then why didn't you have that push for Medicare for all? See, they tell on themselves. They tell on themselves. And Indie News Network also tweeted this as well and said, they tweeted her quote and said, people with the most privilege and power thought they were in the same boat as the people who were most vulnerable during the pandemic. When they were in that boat, they were willing to do anything. So Jimmy Dore was right to demand you all to force the vote. Right. Now, it gets worse because apparently AOC had a town hall scheduled for today, and Jose, along with his friend Nogatone and Lucy, who you guys know also from Indie News Network, they tried to go to the town hall and something happened. Now, you know, Jose has been vocal about how he feels about AOC. So has Lucy has confronted AOC. Lucy lives in lives in AOC's district. Lucy canvassed for AOC, and AOC doesn't even want to talk to her own constituents that actually volunteered for her. Let me show you what happened when they showed up to the town hall today. So Jose says both Nogatone, who's a constituent, and myself are also not allowed into AOC's town hall. We were all singled out, which goes to show how scared she really is. And so Lucy tweeted here, I am now banned from AOC's town halls. Listen to this.
Hang out here if you want.
Well, why can't he go in?
I'm telling you, can't go in. That's why.
Why is that?
Because I'm telling you, they can't go in.
So he's not allowed in?
Yes, he's not allowed in.
Why?
I'm telling you, he's not allowed in.
Why?
Not the reason. I'm telling you, he's not allowed in. So that's the reason. If you want to hang out here. Thank you.
It's just kind of ridiculous to me. They're not giving me any kind of reason whatsoever. They just escorted me out. I registered for this. I'm a constituent, and they're not allowing me in.
Unfortunately, I do not personally make the rules. It's their event, and they can invite or uninvite whoever. But you can wait over here for now. Maybe they'll change something.
Okay. No problem.
Hang out here if you want.
Well, why can't he go in?
So they wouldn't allow him to go in. So it seems like Jose and Lucy and his friend Nogatone, it seems like they have been put on a list. A do not allow them in list. Now, Jose went on to say, this is interesting. Let's see if she'll recognize my new disguise. And then he went on to say, and worst of all, we were making small talk with people who were not at all with us. They were turned away. Now I know, this is the important part. Now I know why she didn't let us in, because she didn't want to be called out for another military recruitment fair. This was passed out at her town hall. So here we go. For the people who have these questions, let me come here. Service Academy nomination. So here we go again. I'm going to try to read this. It's tiny. Representative AOC may nominate candidates for the service academies that require a congressional nomination. Tuition is free. However, attendance at an academy comes with the commitment to serve for a minimum of 5 years upon graduation. So remember, I debunked this before because I do know people that went to West Point, that went to the Air Force Academy. That is one of the nominations that you can have, but it's not required. So you see this, even if it was required and they changed the rules, AOC does not have to be the one to do it. If she said that these military academies should not be recruiting these high school students, those were her words, not mine, when she was running for office. So here she is again, funneling teenagers into the military industrial complex. People, you can continue to try to defend this, but you lost with me, okay? She does not have to be the one to do it. You stand on your principles. If you said that you don't want military and military academies coming into the high schools and recruiting these teenagers, then you do not have to be the politician who gives them the nomination. It's that easy. This is disgusting. And you guys, people who defending her, you got to stop defending her. And then he went on to say, yes, we had someone in vid coming soon. And listen to this. Another confirmation that AOC had her goons looking out for me. Our friend Rachel, who intervened, called me and told me what she heard. Listen to this, guys. I told you guys.
Wait, okay, so just say that, repeat that again. I'm recording this now. So you were at the event, right? And you were in line, and then tell me what you heard the security say.
One of them said he was going to go downstairs and make sure that certain people that didn't come in that weren't supposed to. And they said, one of them said, oh, yeah, we already got one of them. And then they said, well, did you see the other one? They said, yeah, he left too.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Wait, okay, so just say that, repeat that.
So AOC, she's at this event in DC, the one that Colin went to, and they're supposed to be talking about organizing and mobilizing. But here it is. She doesn't even want to talk to her own damn constituents unless they agree with her. They don't want to hear from you if you disagree. Look at how cocky they are now. Can you believe it? Can you believe they're the same people that ran in 2018? They're cocky. They're rude. You can't disagree with them. Pathetic. Pathetic. I should have known anything that Cenk Uygur was a part of was a fucking scam. I should have known. But there's more. Because you see, one of the questions that has been coming up is, do the establishment Democrats actually fear the squad? Now, shout out to Roger Meadows because he sent me this. This was actually on Breaking Points. This is Ryan Grimm. He actually discovered something. There is a group that has been trying to push a more centrist direction. They've even considered recruiting someone like Joe Manchin to run for president, to take those votes away from someone that is running on what they consider to be the extreme left or the extreme right. And you end up with a Joe Manchin. That is what they figure. But the question that Ryan did ask is, why are they not, using like these PACs, so to speak, like AIPAC, to push back against those progressive politicians that are in office? And you need to hear what they said. This is interesting.
Right.
Ryan, what are you taking a look at?
So when it comes to Democratic Party politics, big money made a huge comeback in 2022, more than matching the surge in small dollar contributions that had been kicked off by the Bernie Sanders campaign back in 2015 and that threatened to reshape the party. Now, one of the leaders of the big money counter-revolution is not a household name. He's a tech executive named Dimitri Melhorn, whose largest source of power comes from his connection to his college classmate, Reid Hoffman, the billionaire founder of LinkedIn, who, as Sagar was mentioning earlier on the show, financed the E. Jean Carroll lawsuit and otherwise has spent tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars on Democratic Party politics and going after Trump. But Dimitri, as Democratic insiders all call him, using only his first name, has been good at organizing other like-minded mega donors as well, which means that he can now move tens of millions of dollars with the flick of a wrist. He has directed much of that money in alliance with the group Democratic Majority for Israel, targeting progressive Democrats in primaries, burying them under an avalanche of super PAC spending. So I interviewed him for my podcast Deconstructed, which came out this weekend, and he laid out his explanation for why it is that he's been so heavily invested in undermining the left. And I asked him if he was going to continue that crusade in 2024, and his answer, I think, was revealing. Take a listen to this.
Okay, so he's asking this gentleman, is he going to continue to try to push forth these PACs to undermine the left, the progressives? Listen to this shit.
How are you thinking about 2024 Democratic primaries? Do you guys feel like, and I've written about this before, but mainstream Democrats, the group that you mentioned, plus Democratic Majority for Israel, which works very closely with mainstream Democrats, really kind of transformed what was possible for, I think, progressive left-wing candidates in Democratic primaries in the last cycle. I'm curious if you think you have essentially tamed the left to the point where you're kind of moving on from Democratic primaries, or are you guys gearing up for another test in 2024, that if you see progressive candidates that you think are too progressive popping up, that the super PACs are going to, come out guns blazing on them?
I think we're okay now. If you run a no-label centrist like a Joe Manchin in every state, you will split the anti-Trump coalition, and therefore Trump will win. This
sounds a little bit similar to what Andrew Yang said with his Forward Party, that They were looking for that, like that centrist candidate, so to speak. That's what this no labels group reminds me of. But notice he said, I think we're okay now, in reference to pushing those PACs to stop progressives. Why would he say that? Let's go on.
Risk. And I think it's a huge risk. It is one of the top 5 ways that Trump could get reelected is if Nancy Jacobson and Mark Penn and Joe Lieberman continue in this path and put this ballot line in every state. When they launched this effort, this absurd, venal effort, one of the things that they did in their video promotion is they talked about how bad the two parties were. And the visual images they included were Donald Trump on the right and AOC on the left. And so they're ignoring the existence of Biden. Now, I don't think it works. I actually think no labels has a real risk of collapsing in this effort, and I hope that they do. And I think that in general, if you listen to the way Bernie Sanders is talking about endorsing Joe Biden, I am quite confident right now that the actual extremes of the left are pretty severely marginalized. That's in general. At the margins, it's a little bit like, for example, when a judge gave a ruling that was really unhelpful. This is the judge with the abortion pill, and AOC comes out and says we should just ignore the ruling. Like AOC is siding with JD Vance. The two of them are both like, yeah, rulings that we don't like, we shouldn't do. And it makes it hard to build a coalition of donors around the rule of law. But in terms of general voters, I don't think it's a problem anymore. And I don't think we need to do more to fight back against it at the moment.
Well,
he doesn't think it's an issue anymore and they don't need to fight back against it. And he points out the fact that AOC was siding with JD Vance, who was a Trump candidate, by the way, in reference to that particular issue. They did what they needed to do. They already did the suppressing that they could do. But listen to this.
They're good news and bad news for the left. They won't get bombed by super PACs, but that's because they've been thoroughly beaten down to the ground.
Yes.
There you go.
There you go. Congratulations.
So 2 things to talk about here. Let's do the left first and then do the no label stuff. Because the no label stuff is newsy because he's one of the biggest money men in Democratic politics, and to have him kind of crusading against this no labels effort is interesting. But on the point about the left, what could be more demoralizing than having your opponent say out loud that they're not even worried about you anymore? Like, you've been so smashed that, you know what, you guys can do your thing and we'll be annoyed every now and then by your tweets, but we're not even going to bother organizing big money against you.
Don't they do it because, I mean, why would they? Like, AOC said she would back Biden. Bernie Sanders endorsed Joe Biden immediately, like didn't even hold on for a second. I mean, all of them, I haven't seen a peep from a single progressive Democratic lawmaker who has even advocated for the debate. Not even said like, okay, what if you're like, yeah, I support Joe Biden, but he shouldn't be a corner.
You'd be shouted down, like
you'd be killed. You'd be killed. Right.
And so they, in the last cycle,
it's interesting to hear that come from Sauger. Why would they consider them to be a threat when they're going along with the establishment Democrats? That's the point that they're trying to make. They're not a threat, guys.
A bunch of candidates, progressive candidates, did make it through this kind of DMFI and Reid Hoffman gauntlet, but a lot of them did it by really trimming their sails, particularly on Israel-Palestine, and signing statements saying, like, I denounce BDS. I have never supported BDS. If I did, that was somebody else that supported it. Fetterman, literally, which in my interview, he says they came very close to endorsing Conor Lamb, and because Conor Lamb was begging them for super PAC spending. Fetterman literally let DMFI edit his statement on Israel-Palestine. Like, just campaign, just tell us what you want us to say.
Why do they care so much about Israel? Not the Democratic majority for Israel. Reid Hoffman and all of them. Like,
I think so.
Or
Dimitri, it's interesting and worth exploring more.
I just don't get this.
But they have teamed up with DMFI. Like, they have the same consultants. Mark Mellman does the polling for mainstream Democrats. Reid Hoffman and Dimitri just seem to like kind of appreciate their political sensibilities. But it does raise a question like, okay, your main issue is that you think Trump is, and we could talk about this too, that Trump is a disease. Like, that's Dimitri's kind of fundamental kind of analysis, that Trump is not the symptom of a broader thing, but Trump is the disease itself. So the only thing that matters is going after Trump. And I was like, but then why are you spending tens of millions of dollars on Israel-Palestine? Like, that doesn't quite square.
Doesn't square at all. Yeah. I always.
So the progressives, they turned out to not be progressive on Israel and Palestine. They really aren't taking the progressive position when it comes to war. They weren't taking the progressive position when they voted to, some of them voted to fund the Capitol Police when it comes to policing. They're not using the phrase defund the police anymore because the Democratic establishment doesn't want you to use it. And Nancy Pelosi said that's not the way that the party is going to go. So there's no need for Dimitri or that group, No Labels, to put up big PAC money against those progressives because they are not considered a threat. And if they're not considered a threat, then why are they there? So there you go. So when you think about that event that Colin attended, when you think about how AOC is preventing Jose and his friend Nogatone and Lucy from going to AOC's town halls and events anymore, these people aren't a threat anymore. They finally pulled the mask off fully. I mean, a lot of us, some of us have been talking about this before, but fully to the point that you can just see that at the end of the day, they are a part of the establishment PMC class. That is where they come from, most of them. And they're not really trying to fight for you. They're not trying to fight for working class people, poor people. They get in where to fit in. They have their spot, and it's a done deal. Anytime they're telling you that they don't want to put up big PAC money against them because they're not considered a threat, then that means they know that they're going along to get along now. Sorry, but I think everybody needed to hear that. I'll take that comment on Rockfin, Eric. Thank you for the tip on Rockfin, Roger. Just came from the AOC event. See, here we go. But got there late when everyone was leaving, those outside or protesters. Lucy and Jose left before I got there after having their First Amendment rights violated and was locked outside despite Lucy being a constituent. Outside the protesters, 20s through 40s. People passing, coming out, most were older and couldn't be bothered. One young person who didn't know why the protest, I talked to him for about a half an hour after I asked him what he knew about Ukraine, and he only knew what MSM told him when I got done with him and showed him the 2018 letter by Congress of the Nazi element in Ukraine, NATO 2014 coup. Also talked him into signing up under no party, gave him a voter registration form, and convinced him we don't need parties. He agreed and told him about congressional ballot initiatives and becoming a CBI state worker co-ops. He agreed. I got the video. And thank you for this as well. The New York Health Act outlaws private health insurance from operating in New York State. AOC didn't even support that. De Blasio ended qualified immunity for the NYPD before he left. No one has tested this against the NYPD yet. Guys, next time try to get the badge numbers because they just violated your First Amendment rights. You can actually sue them for that. While you're at it, you can sue AOC for doing the same. Let's call New York State ACLU. Go ahead and smash that like button, guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so. That helps me with the algorithm. And I'm going to go to some of the other comments here. Thank you for the super chat, Janice. Justice Dems was a scam from the jump. It was intended to misdirect delusion Bernie supporters from supporting Stein in the general election. I really do think it was a scam from the get-go, looking back on it. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Missin. They is them. Ilhanner says, well, you can't call out the people you work for. And thank you, Random Nobody. I'm ready whenever the rest of you are. Thank you, David. All the squad represents is funneling of movements and leftist energy back into a corrupt party that will continue to ignore the constituents. Facts. Shout out to Hardlands Media. What's up, kid? Says, keep speaking the truth, Sabby. Thank you, John. The soul of our nation is the bottom of our shoes, of their shoes, as they try to put it on our throats. And thank you, Seeking Freedom. As a Black person himself, how dare he say that? The soul, TF. They are all a bunch of sellouts. I hear you. And shout out to Seeking Freedom for becoming a Sabby member. Whoop, whoop. Whoop, whoop.